Tennessee. Jim, it was 50 something degrees. We
You're
haven't had
making me.
this since what, January last year? We had
You're
that
making me.
one cold day
You're
down in
making me
Florida.
jealous. Yeah, you're making me jealous.
I remember waking up that one morning. I think it was in January, where how we had that one day where it got really cold, and I woke up and I actually had turned the heat on in the house down in the Keys. But yeah, so joining me today is the man, the legend, Mr. Skinny Jim. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. Well, yeah, we'll get to
Well,
it, but
we'll talk about it.
yeah.
So, we've got some stuff to talk about. This is the generic show because I really don't have a hot topic. Let's put it this way: the hot topic is currently evolving as we speak. Um, so yeah, and so we're just going to kind of shoot from the hip today and talk about things. Again, here's a way how historical wargaming is tricky is when real world scenarios are playing, and do you even touch them with a 10-foot pole? So we'll talk about that and much, much more. Make sure I got my settings correct. In 3, 2, 1.
Big Duke 6 Eagle thrust. Put on War off. Sing it loud. Into the Romeo Foxtrot. Shall we dance?
You are listening to the Sitrep podcast, your source for everything related to historical wargaming. Whether you are looking for the latest wargaming news, reviews, painting tutorials, or playthroughs, you will hear about it right here. So grab your favorite beverage or brush and let's hit it.
Okay, so we're back. As you can see, we have a reduced crew today, which is fine, actually. I think the meat and taters of the group is right here. The other two are just flavoring. They're butter and sour cream and chives and all that crap. We got some stuff to talk about. We're not going to follow our usual format today because the man that you see below me in the screen has put in a ton of work over the last several months to bring you a 50th anniversary content. Well, history has smacked us in the gobsmack.
Yeah.
And so I saw Jim put it out on the Facebook about asking people's opinion on whether we should proceed with that information or not. We'll let people's opinions. I will give my opinion at some point, but Jim, why don't you give us some background of what's going on and how that's affecting programming?
Yeah, so about the last 3 months or so, a great deal of time, money, and effort has been put into some 50th anniversary content for the Yom Kippur War. The Yom Kippur War is the biggest of the 4 major Arab-Israeli wars. Started on 6 October 1973. We've been looking forward to doing the 50th anniversary of that for literally the last 2 years. Actively preparing for it. The games have been played. They've all been recorded. Some all-night sessions putting together the material for it, like editing those videos. And then, of course, if unless you've been living under a rock this weekend, you've seen some very, very distressing news, coming out of the region. Absolutely not trying to be cute about it, but someone beat us to it as far as marking the anniversary in the worst way possible. So the video was publishing last night, and it takes a while for it to render. And of course, we had some YouTube problems, but it was basically ready to render at about 4:30 this morning. So apologies, I'm literally on an all-nighter here. I've gotten like 9 hours of sleep this week, and it just, my fingers hovering over the publish button, and I'm like, well, maybe if I change the title of the video, maybe if I put a disclaimer in front of the video, and no matter how I tried to work it, I was 50% on one hand and 50% on the other hand about whether or not we should push it. And to be honest, the 50% that said we should push it is just because of all the work that I put into it. I'm like, well, maybe now isn't the time to, be selfish about it. So I put up some, as Bill mentioned, I put up some, some surveys, if you will. There's one on our Discord, which so far is leaning against putting it up. And I don't know if we've had any replies on the Facebook question yet. but it doesn't look like it yet. It only went up like 17 minutes ago. But the one on Discord has gotten a more immediate response. It's close. It's like 60% no. So I don't know. I mean, of course, we'll get your opinion too, Bill. But at the moment, I don't think we're going to be going ahead and publishing this stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much October's content. 3 videos probably won't be going out because I mean, the one thing is to delay and like let an interval kind of go past. The problem with that is that it's time for this. Like the content is about the 50th anniversary. It won't be the 50th anniversary anymore. Like it won't even be October. And from what we hear out of the region so far, this is not going to be the usual lightning Israeli strike where it's all they pretty much win in a matter of hours, if not days, and then that's the end of it. So I don't think by November this thing is going to be resolved. At least not by what we're seeing so far. It happened like a day and a half ago, 2 days.
Yeah.
At the most. So we don't really know anything for sure yet, but yeah, I mean, when Ukraine kicked off for real in February of 22, we stayed away from Ukraine for a while, like almost like over a year. I didn't put up any more Ukraine content, so I don't know if this is if this Yom Kippur content is going to see the light of day. To be honest, I mean it sucks, but at the same time we have something of a responsibility. I mean we're just a small channel, but at the same time, we got to be sensitive to what's going on.
So here's my take on it. Yeah. I mean, would it be appropriate to hit the button and go live today? No.
Right.
Next month, maybe. The thing is, these are 2 separate. While it's one of the countries involved is obviously in both, it's 2 separate times in history. The Yom Kippur War was Israel against Egypt and is it Syria as well?
Yep.
It was like the Arab.
Which is the part we were going to do. I mean, it's not like
Right.
we're doing one of the battles in the West Bank.
Right.
Then it wouldn't even be a question. And
Right.
in 67 and 56, there are some huge battles in the West Bank. This is what's going to be up on the Golan Heights.
Yeah.
Tank battle out in the Golan
Yeah.
Heights, no civilians in the way. Nevertheless, I mean the timing is just too.
It's a sticky situation, a sticky wicket, if you will. I personally say there's nothing wrong with us airing it maybe after the event has ended. Is the actual anniversary? It's now, right?
No,
Or
it
is
was
it
actually it's a couple days ago,
right?
October 6th.
Was it at the beginning of Yom Kippur, which was in September, right? If I'm understanding.
It depends on the year.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
calendar. The
Okay.
one that we were doing, it begins 1400 hours local,
He-
6
he-
October.
Here's my opinion. Your content is very well done. It is not biased to one side or another. You come from just a purely historical standpoint. You're not touting the side of the Israelis. You're not touting the side of the Arab nations that were, on the other side. You're presenting history. Is it unfortunate that Israel is having the issues it is having currently? Yes. So my thought would be a couple months, maybe, again, we have to gauge what happens in history right now. But there's no reason why we should not air it. Yes, it's not going to be right on the timeline of it, but we
Oh,
can,
yeah.
it is what it is. A lot of places do not air stuff right on the 50th anniversary. You are steadfast. I'm going to do it on the 50th anniversary. I'm going to coincide with the actual anniversary. There are a ton of programs on professional channels, broadcast channels that will air something during that year of the 50th anniversary. Even if we have to put a caveat screen, a little disclaimer at the beginning, this was filmed prior to the events of October 2023. So be it.
Yep.
It is. We're not making light of a situation. You are presenting a historical fact that happened 50 years ago. That would be like, well, we don't want to do. I don't want to do Little Bighorn. Because right now there is a Native American brouhaha going on out west about land. They're not fighting or anything like that. It's reservation, stuff like that. I'm just using that as a very broad example.
Yep.
We're presenting history. We're not making history. We're not making policy. We're not taking sides. We are presenting history from the standpoint of some people who lived 50 years ago and fought for what they believed in, right? Whether you're on the Israeli side or on the Arab nation side. There is no good guy. There's no bad guy in history. Let's be that. Outside of a few exceptions. We know
Yeah,
those
I mean,
exceptions.
this is kind of what I was thinking about last night. I mean, what's going on right now is very, let's just say it's asymmetrical.
Yeah.
From what I can tell, it's not, two armies fighting each other. This is
More of a terrorist action from what the
yeah,
little I know.
that's kind of what I'm seeing as well. And okay, when it comes to terrorism, then you're like, okay, that you can sort of pick one side or the other. What we were
Right.
trying to present, or what we were going to present today, is Syrian army versus Israeli army, and some of the commentary that's in the intro part of that video
Yeah.
is like you say, it's right down the middle, and a little critical of both sides. I just felt it was kind of a weird time to be even marginally critical of Israel.
Right.
You can be critical of Israel in 1973. I mean, I won't get into it because that's literally what I was trying to avoid.
Yeah.
But I don't think what's going on right now. What's going on now is terrorism. Those people didn't put on a uniform. They didn't sign a contract. They didn't put a rifle on their shoulder. They didn't lace up any boots. I'm hearing about paragliders. I don't know what the hell's going on over there.
Paragliders.
Yeah, it's insane what's going on over there right now. But that's just straight out terrorism.
Yeah.
And yeah.
If I might read, we have a response from the Facebook post you did.
Yep.
This is from someone named Alias Zug.
Yep, I'm seeing it.
Okay. I think you should. It's history, and hopefully learning it, even by war game, helps to better understand the present situation. If you wait for peace to settle there, and in far too many other places in the world, you will probably wait for a long time. Last thing, we can hope that people playing war games are educated and able to put things into perspective. Good luck.
Definitely appreciate the supportive the comment. And yeah, from what we're hearing, this is not going to be like a 2008 Iron Dome kind of a thing where it's a quick series of airstrikes, very bloody, but it's going to be over in a week or so. It doesn't sound like that's going to be the situation this time.
Oh. Just when you think something's going to go one way, the Israeli military has a way of throwing it a curveball and it going another. Take the raid on Entebbe. I mean, I'm going back in history, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Nobody expected that to happen, to be honest with you. And then they went in and did what they had to do. Yes, is this going to be a quick lightning strike? No. But knowing the Israeli army and government I'm not an expert by any means, but from the little bit I know, they don't tolerate and they don't sit on their hands.
Yeah, they're not known for forgive the bleep, fucking around when it comes to this kind of thing.
I mean, if you look at their clandestine people, the Mossad and others, those guys, they went into freaking Germany during the Olympics, right? And took care of business. They went into somebody else's country and took care of business because that country would. I mean, that's why the GSG-9 was developed, is because of the Olympics. That's the German Special Operations Group. So it'll be interesting to see from a perspective of a military I'm not a military historian. I would claim you to be one more than me, but as a appreciator, aficionado of military history, it will be interesting to see how this plays out from the purely strategy and tactical standpoint. Our thoughts and prayers go with all in that region. It's just a bloody mess. I wish people would get along, to be honest with you. But, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to happen a lot. So we'll have to see what happens. So my thought is we air it, maybe not right this minute, but before the end of the year. I mean, you could even put it over the Christmas holiday season, so to give you some time off to enjoy with your family. give you since you've worked so hard on it. I do not want to see it going into the can. It does that's not the answer. That's almost like uh, go with me. This is a big
Yep.
stretch. Book burning, banning books. Just because somebody doesn't like it's a hot topic, it's not the we don't want to touch that. No, we can't. We as a channel have to be responsible, right? And we have to present history as history is presented. We can't not. It's not right. It's not fair. It's not ethical. Yes, there's a human factor to it, and that's what we're discussing now. But at the same token, what happened 50 years ago, while in some aspects does affect what's happening currently, it is a different army. It's a different, area. It's Hamas is different than Egypt and Syria and all those that were involved in Yom Kippur. So,
Right. At least they're regular armies for certain.
yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Jen has put up some very interesting things. I think the Israelis are at the point where they're just going to, yeah, we'll see what happens. It's just a very, very interesting thing. So that's my opinion. If anybody out there that's watching agrees or disagree, please let us know. I apologize for the Sunday change in schedule. I was like Jim working on videos and stuff for the channel. I was in the real world work till very late Friday night handling some issues. And it just wasn't going to happen on Saturday morning, to be honest with you. And I don't know about you, Jim, but I actually prefer Sunday morning shows. I think the Sunday morning works better for me personally. But, that's just me. I'd have to ask the rest of the team. I mean, we originally changed it to Saturday to accommodate Chris Long, and he hasn't been back on the show.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
I love Chris, and Chris handles a lot of our background stuff on Facebook. But I don't know about you, Jim, but I prefer Sunday morning more than Saturday morning. So that's just me. I don't know. Anybody in the audience, if you'd like to let us know as well, I would appreciate it. Anywho, so I don't know. Does that help you at all, Jim? At all?
I mean, I literally was 50-50 all night.
Yeah.
So I put up the channels. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I put up the surveys on the channels
Yeah.
just to kind of see which way the community was leaning. And looks like I'm not the only one having a tough time making up my mind about it. I mean, yeah, we're definitely not going to, I don't think, publish it today.
Yeah.
It was supposed to go up at like midnight last night. So it's already 10 hours late.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty much a wash for this
So
weekend.
we need some kind of content for today then?
Well, I'm not putting anything up today. Or
No.
tomorrow,
I'm just
but
asking. So that was what was scheduled, was that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That was the rest of October.
Okay. Well, we'll count today's show as Sunday content, and then was next week supposed to be Yom Kippur as well?
Part 2.
Would you
Part
be
2 of
opposed
this
to you and
video.
I doing a Panzer Blitz game or something next week?
Honestly, Bill, I'll be perfectly frank. I'm thinking about taking a break for a while.
That's fine. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Like a long break, like 3 months or so.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. We can talk about that off camera.
Okay. That's
I
fine.
don't want to drop that on you like on camera, but it's starting to affect other parts of my life.
Yeah,
to be
no
honest with
problem. Not a problem. Understood. Believe me, I understand. All right. Well, I'd ask you what you've been up to, but we kind of know that one already.
Well, the Mogadishu content went up. I mean, just
Yeah, it was great.
Something I don't want to say good news, but I mean, content-wise, we did hit the 30th anniversary. Those videos were pretty well were pretty well received. So there has been some good stuff happening on the channel lately.
Yeah. Oh, and the commander in chief has given you your marching orders for next weekend. By the way.
Oh, I'm out of town next weekend. That's something else.
So, don't worry about it. I got it handled for next weekend. It's not a problem. Like I said, with my current work schedule, weekends are much easier for me to get content out than like trying to shoot a Wednesday night, unless I have something pre-recorded. So don't worry about it. I got you covered.
Cool. Yeah, I mean Wednesdays are tough. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of fortunate. I get to work from home, and even then, it's like because you want to put a promo material, you want to set up the stream ahead of time.
Yeah.
And now that there goes your lunch break. You're working at 6 a.m. before you log in for work or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it never failed. I'd say, okay, we're doing this Wednesday night show. I throw it out. Tuffy is in the house. Welcome, Tuffy. And it's like somebody watches it at work and they're like, "Oh, you're going to do that tonight. Well, let me throw you this curveball, and you know have to stay late and deal with this and blah blah blah." It's almost I can almost set a clock by it, um, which is cool. All right, so yeah, no, your Mogadishu table was amazing. I enjoyed the whole video series on that one. I was worried at one point when your Humvee got knocked out by that one technical sitting there on the corner of
Yeah.
that building. I was like, "Oh boy, is this going to be the sticking point?" And then your little bird running out of ammo in the turn 2. So
We're getting some pretty piss poor rolls and then running out of ammo. Yeah. And then McKnight, I mean, he gets a D12. He's one of the baddest guys on the table. He just second half of the game, McKnight never rolled above a 3 on a
Yeah.
D12,
yeah,
and it's literally on camera. And that
Yeah.
I'm kind of counting on that because that's your reactions. He's literally the lieutenant colonel. It's one of the great things about Force on Force is that you know your guys might shoot at each other or whatever, and okay, you're like your guys like Hoot or Sergeant First Class at the time, Sergeant First Class Norman Hooten, Eric
hmm
Bana's character in the movie. He's a badass
yeah,
with his little his little carbine and all that shit. But
yeah,
as far as running the force, you need a commander, and that commander better have some big dice. Well, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel McKnight, commanding officer, 3rd Battalion, 75th Rangers, he's a bona fide badass.
hmm
And then the dice just kept throwing bricks, man. I'm like, McKnight, what are you doing, man? We're gonna get a message from the real McKnight going, "What the hell are you guys doing to me?
right.
It's not my fault. It's the dice, sir. Apologize."
Yeah. No, it was beautiful. How long did it take you to set up that table?
Uh, to set it up was like 2 hours. Yeah, it was an hour driving time, 2 hours of setup time. We got to play for like 4 hours, an hour to take it down, and then an hour out. We literally spent more time driving and taking it up and putting it down than we spent playing.
Wow.
But nature of the beast.
But it very well done. I mean, and all that terrain
Thank you
was
very
your
much.
kit built terrain for the most part, right?
Like 99%. Like the only thing I didn't build from scratch on that was the palm trees. Other than that, everything on there was scratch built.
And if you guys have not seen that, Jim has a video posted on our YouTube channel on how he makes those buildings. So if you go back in there, I'll see if I can find the link for it. But it's amazing how simple it appears to be. It's nothing like overly fancy, but very effective. Very, very effective.
Yeah, I mean, in summary, you just start building boxes,
Yeah.
and if you just put the boxes on the table, it would look like a bunch of shoe boxes with some Adobe skins put it over it, and it would like, okay, that's a bunch of boxes with. But if you make a bunch of smaller boxes, and the key is just numbers. It's just scale. It's like the Soviet army. You just throw enough infantry at the problem, it eventually goes away. You just put enough of those little blocks next to each other and kind of Lego block it together. Pretty soon, it no longer has that strict, cubicle or shoebox shape. Now they actually look like real buildings, and
Right.
they're also easier to store that way because you flip that bigger box over, you throw all the little boxes in it, and before you know it, it helps with storage as well. So it helps on storage. It's very cheap. It just is very labor intensive is the only downside.
Did you do that as a live show or was that a recorded one? Do you remember?
I think it was live. I think it was like there were a couple live ones
Yeah.
where I was like, going through the opening stages of building some buildings.
Because the way YouTube breaks down things, it's either recorded or live.
Yep.
So,
I'm pretty sure that was live.
well, there's your desert buildings one. I can use that one. Let me get a link on that. Share.
Yeah, I think Christmas of
Copy.
21 was Trenton. We built some
Paste.
some Revolutionary War buildings.
All right, I put the link up in the comments there for your desert ones.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I mean, very effective. And for those who have storage problems, like he says, you can stack them in. And yes, Tuffy, we still believe you're 6. And it was very effective. It looked great. And it's for those who are on a budget, because I would love a table full of miniature building authority. He can set up a really nice table of Mogadishu with their buildings, but that's thousands of dollars.
Oh
It'll
yeah,
look great, but it's thousands and thousands of dollars when you add it all up. But Jim's way, your investment is time more than anything.
yeah. Time,
Yeah.
glue, and patience.
So yeah, that's essentially, if you can sit down for how many ever days it takes you to do what you need to do, you can put it together, and your investment is the basic materials plus time.
For
So
the Trenton game, I basically built the city of Trenton in 20 millimeter. Even in 1776, Trenton was a decent sized town,
mhm.
and it was just the entire month of December. Once I think it's the TNT channels just starts playing like the Christmas story
Yeah, over and over
12
and over.
times, 12 times a day. We just literally put on the Christmas story, and I was just smashing out buildings. And it got to be like a game. Like, can I build a building in the time it takes for one run of the Christmas story? And 2 hours to build a building. I mean, those buildings were a little more complex. They actually had, little dormers, I think they call them, on the side of
Mm,
the buildings. They had little chimneys. They weren't just boxes. Modern architecture is a little less imaginative, I think, than like old colonial Victorian stuff.
yeah,
So it was, yeah, to put one of those things together in 2 hours once you got the system down. You do that like 8 times a day. Okay, now you just put in 16 hours of work. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Before you know it, you've got a town. So
yeah,
just a lot of time.
it is. Sorry, I'm checking settings here. Just make sure I have got things right. Um, no, it's very effective. Like I said, the Trenton table was beautiful. The Mogadishu, and you did another table, didn't you? Was it
Oh, we
just
did.
those two?
We did. I've done tons of tables.
Well, I mean, with that Trent. Yeah.
Fallujah. Yeah, we did Fallujah, which is a lot of the same buildings and roads, just set up to look at a certain part of Fallujah, namely the pizza slice is what they
Mm,
called it, because the roads kind of it looked in the map. It looks like a slice of pizza almost.
sure.
Um, where elements of I think it was. Ooh, I should know this. Oh, 3-5 Marines, Kilo Company, 3-5 Marines. Actually, we're hooking up with 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry, U.S. Army. So that's why there was a Black Hawk in that game, because I don't think the Marines were flying Black Hawks at the time. So I don't even know if they fly Black Hawks now, to be honest. I knew they weren't when I was in. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
But we wanted to put the Black Hawk in the game. We figured out a way to do it. Oh, 2-7 is in the area, so that's how we did it.
Okay. Well, Tough Year says, I'm working on what project to do next, maybe 28 mil WW2 or something more modern. Jen says you also did something with the aluminum roofed hooches in Vietnam. So, yeah. Yeah, a lot of great terrain ideas. I hope people, if you have not seen those videos, go back and look at them and all that.
Oh, yeah. What Jen's talking about are the some of the Vietnam terrain. So you watch like these old Vietnam movies, like the American fire bases. There's a bunch of sandbags, and then it looks like that corrugated metal on the roof, usually with more sandbags piled on top of it.
like
So
Green
there,
Berets.
yeah, you just get like a sheet of corrugated cardboard. Like, okay, I don't have any handy here, but like the very basic stuff.
Yeah.
You carefully peel off one side of it, and you get that little corrugation on there. Paint it gray, dry brush it orange to suggest some rust, and
Bada bing, bada boom. You're good.
you're there.
Yeah. Bob's your uncle. Awesome. So, guys, we have a Discord channel and a lot of great activity going on, hobbying, and Jim's very, very active in the Discord channel.
That
Yeah.
is one more positive thing we can bring up today. Our Discord a couple weeks ago broke 200 members, so
Nice.
we're doing pretty well there.
Congratulations. And we did post. I've got to get the poll going. It'll be on my list of things to do today. For our awards. So we'll get that up going, and we want to get that cooking. Should we cover some news items, Jim? You think?
Sure.
Okay. I would do an intro, but it's Marty's, and it's just not the same effect. So, what's in the news? All right, our first item up for bid, kids, is I don't even know. I'm trying to figure out my page here. Let me see it. Okay. American Civil War. Nope, that's not it. There it is. Something that Jim might appreciate. Soviet
Okay.
Scout Squad, 20 millimeter, from Seb Games. Never heard of this company. So they have Soviet Scouts. I'm assuming these were World War II Scouts by the look of the uniforms and weapons. Can you see that, Jim?
Um, I can see the basic shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Soviet Scouts in 20 millimeter. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I'm seeing those hats, those covers.
There we go. I got a bigger picture.
There you go. Um, yeah, that's oh yeah, I think one of them's carrying a PPSH. Yeah, those are definitely World War II scouts.
Okay.
So I think they were called Radvachiki, was the Soviet name for them. They're
Mhm.
actually kind of badass. They were one of the first military outfits to wear what we would kind of recognize as sort of an ancestor of like the modern ghillie suit, and their camouflages. I mean, they weren't the first to wear, camouflage patterns. That's either the Marine Corps or the Waffen SS, but they were right there. They were right behind them. And yeah, the Germans did not like those guys because they were very, very good at being where you didn't expect them to be. Let's just put it that way.
Sure. Now, were they prevalent throughout the Eastern campaign, or did they develop later into it? Do you know?
Yeah, the Soviet army is destroyed and rebuilt like literally 4 times over. But by the middle of 42, you definitely start seeing these guys. They're out in front of where the Soviet army is expecting to launch some kind of a breakthrough
Mhm.
or so on. They're also working even further back. The scale and the coordination almost to a ruthless degree. In fact, we're talking about the Soviets in World War II. Everything's ruthless, with which their partisan effort was managed. It was not like it was in Yugoslavia or even northern Italy, where there's just guys running around with guns and it's basically Red Dawn, the prequel.
Mhm.
It was not like that at all. The French resistance, the Maquis, and are pretty tightly coordinated, at least as best as they could, because like you had special operations executive with the British or whatever, paratrooping them in supplies and agents and radios and trying to come up with a plan. Like, let's concentrate a little bit in northern France, like getting ready for D-Day or whatever. The Russians, it was a part of the army.
Yeah.
Once you joined the partisans, then you had a lieutenant, you had a captain, you had a battalion commander. They were very, very serious about that, and these Radvachiki were very heavily engaged in that.
Mm.
And even in defensive battles, they were very good at operating behind German lines and then making sure that they could tell, we're seeing a lot of tanks on this road. I think they might be making a push here or something like that, and finding like German artillery positions so that when the Germans would launch an offensive, the Soviets could put counter battery artillery on them, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like a lot of special forces, a lot of times it's not really like a direct combat like SEAL Team 6 kind of a thing. In a wargaming sense, it would almost be like a bonus to your force. Like, oh,
Gotcha.
you've got good scouts, your counter battery artillery is +1 for this turn or something like that.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Next up will be. We're kind of jumping around, but that's okay. That is okay. We have some 28 millimeter World War II British infantry from Victrix. Gotta love Victrix. They've been around forever. So we have some Brits from World War II. They look all right. And they're plastics. Victrix does plastics. So barrel's a little warped there, but that's... the thing about Victrix...
Well, I'm not going to cast any stones out of that glass house. Some of my barrels are like, Arisky, are those units supposed to be able to shoot around walls with those barrels of yours? Did you mean to do that?
Victrix, the thing about Victrix is they've really upped their game as far as sculpts lately. I mean, if you go back, was it almost 20 years, some of their stuff was like, but now it's gotten much better. And, I don't know how many guys you get in a box these days, but doesn't say on the page.
I don't have any. The oldest minis I have, my girlfriend in an antique store found me a pack of 20 millimeter Airfix minis
Oh, really?
that were like 45 years old. They've
Yeah.
they're still in the box. So I was like, do I keep them in the box? Hell no, man. They're miniatures. So I broke them out and painted them. And yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
Minis were different 45, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
The technology was different. Still good, but at the same time, it's 40 years old.
Yeah. Usually you get quite a few minis in a box from Victrix, the plastics and stuff like that. If you're looking as an entry point, you're on a limited budget, I would definitely recommend it. They do a lot in 20 mil though, to be honest with you. I see more in 20 mil from them than anything.
20 mil is a fun scale. All my moderns are 20 mil. Well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. About half my minis are 20 mil. I'll put it this way: all my infantry battles are in 20 mil.
I mean, just as an example, hopefully you can see that you can.
Yeah.
There is this World War II starter pack. Everything you need to get started, a 12 millimeter game. Designed to play Company Commander website, So there's this game, Company Commander. Anyways, you get 92 British infantry, 92 German infantry, 4 Shermans, 4 Panzer IVs, plus decals and all that for $50.
It's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. I mean, they have
that is a full company. That's 2 platoons plus a platoon of armor on both sides.
Yeah, so
that's like a mixed company.
Yeah, Victrix has always been one of those companies, where you can get a lot for a really decent price. And like I said, years ago, their sculpts and stuff was more on the toy soldier-ish, if you will. But yeah, no, I'm a fan of them. And nice thing is that my friend over at the Phalanx Consortium, it's a gaming company that moved here to Clarksville, Tennessee. So he's literally down the street from me. So I now have a supplier of Victrix that I can go directly to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Another nice thing about that starter kit is they gave you the right tanks. Mark IVs and
What?
Shermans.
No Shermans versus Tigers?
Well, I mean, it's like a lot of player. I mean, I'm not gonna make fun of whatever people choose to play, but like if I see one more King Tiger on a board, it's like they had like 500 of those, right? And like in the last year of the war.
Yeah. All right, let's see what we got next. Let me get rid of a couple of these pages. What do we have here?
Yes, Jen, the Maquis were a real thing. I think Star Trek kind of stole the name because that's kind of how they saw themselves. They in the show they kind of saw themselves as like a noble sort of a resistance, and this gets into the whole one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist kind of a debate.
All right, so Marty posted this link to this shop of Day of Battle Games Pod. So, to Jim's annoyance, I don't know if you've noticed it yet, Jim. If you're
I'm looking right at it. I'm looking right at it. My favorite.
What do they have
ever.
as representing the American Revolution?
My favorite movie ever.
Oh my God!
I literally sent
I admit I like The Patriot, and I don't like it because it's historically accurate. I just like it because it's a good popcorn movie.
It's a pretty movie, and however you feel about him, Mel Gibson is a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
But God damn that movie! It's. I won't get on the whole rant, but it's. Oh, like not all movies are historically accurate. Like sometimes people like they hear me rant about Patton, or they hear me rant about. Hell, I'll rant about Band of Brothers. Band of Brothers is held up as like this shining gold standard.
Oh, don't talk bad about Band of Brothers.
That show has some problems, big historical problems. But then they say, oh my God, if he's gonna, flip out about, Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan or these other movies, what's he gonna say about Inglourious Bastards or Indiana Jones or Overlord or any of those movies? I'm like, those movies are so far over they're not even trying. They're not cloaking themselves in history. They're not wrapping the flag around themselves. Yeah, that's what I can't stand about movies like The Patriot. It's trying to be a historical movie and it's actively lying to you in some legitimately dangerous ways. Like characterizing what the kinds of things the British Army were doing in that war. Yeah. There were huge atrocities and the Americans were committing them all. So don't pin them on the British by having them lock the whole village in a church and burn it down. I mean, those kinds of things were happening. Guess what? It was the Patriots that were doing it.
So Tough Ear says, I hear The Patriot is as historic as Braveheart.
Braveheart is another bad one, and especially if you're Scottish. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the things that they put forward in that show are like Wallace was not some commoner. He was a member of the nobility. He wore, armor. He had lands. He had a title. Um, and I'm sorry he hooked up with Princess Isabel, and that her child was actually his. Well, first of all, they're like 2 generations apart. That would be like saying that not only was Abraham Lincoln cheating on his wife, but he was banging he was banging George Washington's wife. It's like, hey, not only is that insulting, but it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
But then the actual person that is born of that union turns out to be Edward III, which, if you're, pro Scotland, is, one step short of Adolf Hitler. Man, I mean, Edward III is an absolute monster in Scottish history. Like 10 times, not only more cruel, but more of a badass, more of a capable king in general than Edward I even was. Never mind Edward II.
Yeah.
And then, slinging not to get all political, but slinging the gay card at Edward II. I mean, there's no real evidence of that. It's just a bad movie historically, in some very distasteful ways.
Yeah. No, I get you. So, again, it's a popcorn movie. Historically based, right?
The first time I saw it, I thought it was great. Then I started reading about it. And
I have to ask, because this is something that's interesting to me, is Band of Brothers. What was your big contention with Band of Brothers?
It's more like on a personal level, and more on a like how the characters are portrayed specifically. So the summary, not to like turn into like a whole part of the podcast where we just bash on Band of Brothers, but it's if you were still alive and you were involved in the production, like you were one of the guys giving the interviews or whatever at the end of the show, you came off really well. If you had already passed away, or if you chose not to be a part of the production or whatever, yeah, not so much. Like First Lieutenant Dyke, the guy who's portrayed as an absolute idiot and a very, very poor leader in the Battle of the Bulge episodes. There's no evidence to support that. The one guy, Private Blythe, I think he's called, takes a bullet through both sides of his neck. He's like crying in the bottom of a foxhole, and he dies of his wounds. He retires as lieutenant colonel in 1969. So shit like that. The way they portrayed, I can't remember his name. I think it begins with a W. It's the guy who was shot in he took a minor wound in the Market Garden episode. He doesn't come back till episode 9. And
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and he winds up, I mean, in real life, he becomes like this oceanographer, and I think he's like actually lost at sea sometime in the 50s. Yeah. Again, he's not part of the show, later on, so they kind of have a carte blanche as far as how they portray him. And a lot of this stuff is just either straight out wrong, or it's a little weird about how they how they portray him. Like little things, it's definitely like better than most. It's like 9.5 out of 10.
Okay.
So don't get me wrong, but it's not like a 10 out of 10.
Gotcha. Okay.
I usually bring that stuff up because I like the Pacific, and most people like Band of Brothers more. I'm like, well,
you like Pacific, really?
Yeah, right. Surprise, surprise. So
I mean, I can see why. I mean,
Pacific
it's
a lot
actually
more...
well done. I'll be honest with you. Maybe it's because Band of Brothers came out first. When I saw Pacific, I was actually bored. It was boring.
It's a lot more accurate, and sometimes when you stay really accurate to the history,
life is boring.
Yeah, real life does get boring. And the other thing is, and this is where Band of Brothers, I mean, it's not as historically accurate as the Pacific is, and the problem. Well, first of all, not to throw any shade, but 101st is in the war all of 11 months. I mean, Pacific. Those guys are in the war August of 42 to like July of 45.
Right.
They're in at least the Pacific part. They're in the whole Pacific, and this is where Band of Brothers does have an edge. Is it group because it deals with a much shorter period of time.
Yeah.
Is it grabs one group of guys, Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 506, and it just tells that one story. Pacific, because the war is like 6 times as long, has to jump around between different timelines,
that's
different
a fair
characters.
assessment.
and it
Yeah.
kind of breaks up the characters don't all know each other.
Yeah.
They seem to die at random times because this just funny thing that happens in combat. You tend to
People
get
die.
killed at random times.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not. It doesn't seem to flow as well from a narrative perspective,
Right.
and it doesn't. So
Well, that's what always bothered me about Band of Brothers is that they chose the 101st and made them into this big, glorious jumping. The 82nd was in the war from what 42
they
to
they
the end of the
did
war. They
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 they,
they
they
landed in
jumped the torch.
yeah. I mean, they
Yeah.
actually went into what Tunisia originally, back in the day, and then they did Sicily, and then Italy, and then France and Arnhem. Um, they had 1, 2, 3 combat jumps, I think. 3,
Oh,
4.
I would say, well, they landed in North Africa. I'm not sure it was Tunisia, but it was North Africa for
Yeah,
sure, and
yeah.
it didn't go well. Like I don't think they ever
No.
got into combat because they landed so far off. Sicily didn't go so well. In fact, we had an episode with the 52nd at
Mhm.
Sicily. So that's 2. They did land in. I think they landed. Yeah, they had to have landed somewhere in Italy. That would be 3. Normandy is 4. Arnhem is 5, and I'm
I
not
think that
sure
was
if
the
they.
last one.
Okay, so I know there were some jumps
There was, I
in
think
in 45 in Germany, but I don't know if that was
was
82nd.
it the 11th Airborne that did the last jump into
11th or
Germany?
17th. Yeah,
Yeah,
there were some other units that
yeah,
happened later.
yeah. But yeah. Hello, 82nd Airborne. Did we get a show? Oh no, no. Give it to the Screaming Chickens. But hey, whatever.
There it goes.
Anyhow, yes, Tuffy Ears. Masters of the Air is out soon. That's the new Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg collaboration about the Army Air Force Bomber Command, I believe, in World War II.
I think it's 8th Air Force.
I'm going to find out some information about that. I would like to do a viewing party. I think that'd be cool.
Okay.
We could do it like the first episode, and Jim can go, nope, that's all right. Nope. that
I
ain't
would
it."
I would normally say, oh look, Tom Hanks is gonna tell me about World War II again. There's another movie I can't stand, Greyhound. That movie is so full of shit.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's so
I know
accurate.
nothing
It's
about
so
that. So I enjoyed it for the story.
when
Let's
when
put
the
it that way.
German U-boat commander is like speaking through the loudspeaker aboard the U.S. destroyer, and there's now like surface battles taking. I'm like, oh, no. That movie lost me in the trailer.
Oh,
At the same time, though, I'm interested in this new one because
Mhm.
the last couple big 8th Air Force, or not even really like 15th Air Force as well, the big American European Bomber Command movies that we've gotten lately have been pretty bad.
yeah.
Tuskegee Airmen was outstanding. Red Tails is trash. And one more example of how George Lucas is an idiot and full of himself and not really very creative. No, he sits there in front of Oprah.
Are you
and
saying he
says,
lost its creativity after Star Wars?
I don't think he was very creative in Star Wars. He wasn't. I mean, he made up a really, really, really bad story, and it was rewritten by the studio, and it was saved by the editors, and it was saved by his wife.
Mm.
If you actually look at the original script, I mean, Han Solo was supposed to be a big, like, frog-looking creature, like basically Admiral Akbar.
Oh, God.
C-3PO was going to be this, like this used car salesman. It's terrible. The whole idea at the Battle of Yavin that the big rebel attack on the Death Star at the end of like Episode 4 was happening while the Death Star was just going to happen in the middle of space. Oh, here's the Death Star. We're going to attack it. The idea that the Death Star is trying to get around Yavin 4 or trying to get around Yavin and hit the fourth moon,
Uh-huh.
that's all his wife. And that was
Okay.
put in after, That's why once George Lucas gets his full control, full hands on Star Wars, and he has no one to tell him no, because by now he's so rich and famous. He's an amazing businessman. I mean, Lucasfilm, LucasArts, Skywalker
Yeah.
Sound, THX. I mean, the guy quickly figured out that, hey, I can make a movie, or I can make lunchboxes and toys, and I can make $100 of lunchboxes and toys
Yeah.
for every dollar I make on the movie, or I can make more movies, or I can own THX, Industrial Light and Magic,
Yep.
Skywalker Sound, Lucasfilm, LucasArts. I can own 5% of every movie that's ever made. I'm not doubting the guy's business acumen, but he's not a storyteller, and you can tell that just looking at the devolution of Star Wars. As soon as he actually gets his hands free and clear on Star Wars, we get Jar Jar Binks and midichlorians, and it hasn't been right since.
Mhm.
We even before that, we get the refilms with the edited stuff that
Yeah.
ruins the original movies.
Yeah.
But I got off topic there. Vis-a-vis Red Tails, I mean, he sat in front of Oprah Winfrey. This video's out there on YouTube. You can find it. And says, no one's ever made this movie before about this unit. I'm like, dude, the Tuskegee Airmen came out 8 years ago. And some of the people that are in your movie are the same actors that were in Tuskegee Airmen. Ask your own cast. They'll tell you they've been in this movie before.
Yeah.
I was a colonel in your movie. I was a captain in the last movie because it's like 10, 15 years later. And it's also just terrible. I mean, it's absolutely terrible. So again, that's like one of the that's technically like 15th Air Force. So you've got 8th Air Force, 15th Air Force out of Italy. I'm not a huge fan of Memphis Belle. To
No.
be perfectly honest,
Okay.
it's kind of accurate. There was a plane called the Memphis Belle. It
Yeah,
was
I
the
was
first
on it.
one to get 25 missions. Some of the lines like Matthew Modine kind of throws out there are a little jingoistic. We're not going to bomb innocent civilians. I got bad news for you. The 8th Air Force bombed a lot of innocent civilians.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill himself said, and I quote, we regard the civilian morale of the German population as a legitimate military target. And, it's a little like cloak yourself in the flag kind of a movie. So it'd be interesting to see if we get like an actual realistic depiction
Yeah.
of air operations, strategic air operations over Western Europe.
You know what it's gonna make me want to do is play B-17 from Avalon Hill.
There you go.
So, yeah, we should see when.
I hear that game. I've never played it. I hear that game is almost impossible. I hear it's very, very difficult.
Is it really?
Is that the game where your thing is to try and get a plane through legitimately 25 games, like the same bomber
Something like
crew?
that, yeah.
I hear, that it's like really, really hard.
Well, I
All
mean,
war games are a little bloodier than the real battle
mhm,
because you're pushing around pieces of cardboard instead of real people.
yeah,
And so the idea of getting a bomber crew through 25 missions, whereas the usual loss rate was like 1%, now it's going to be like 3%,
hmm
but multiplied times 25 times, you're almost certainly going to lose all your bomber crews eventually. Is what I've heard. I've never tried the game myself.
yeah. B-17, Queen of the Skies from Avalon Hill, another classic game back in the day. And then there's Luftwaffe, another good game from Avalon Hill back in the day. That game you can get really deep into the weeds on if you do the full campaign on it. So yeah. Jen says, I sense a bit of an animosity against 101st. Let me be honest with you. Let me get my mouse to work so I can throw that up there for everybody to see. I don't have animosity. It's like West High versus East High. In my hometown of Aurora, Illinois, where I finished high school, we had West Aurora, we had East Aurora, and then you had the school I went to, which was Waubonsee Valley, which was on the far east side. That's a whole nother story. But huge rivalry was East versus West. That's exactly what it is. 101st, they still have airborne on their patch. They don't jump out of airplanes anymore. They shouldn't have it. It should say air assault. They're
I think
dope
that's
on
the
a rope.
actual name of the unit, but it's still on the patch.
Yeah. Well,
If
their name is 101st Airborne parentheses
says
air
that?
assault.
Okay, I got you.
So, and I can't speak bad of it because my son was in the 506. He was actually in whatever the company is now. It was essentially the same as Easy Company in the modern version. He went to Afghanistan with the 506. So it's part of my family now. I can't help it. It is what it is. But, when I was in the 82nd, we laughed at the 101st because, we're airborne. No, you're not. You sling from a rope. You're dope on a rope.
Dirty, nasty legs.
You're screaming chickens. So, they have some very not nice names for the 82nd. I'll be honest. We have not been some idiots in the 82nd have tarnished the patch, doing some really bad things in foreign countries. So, it is what it is, but it's a friendly rivalry.
The Marines are the same way. I mean,
so
we got bad things to say about the Army. You guys call us crayon eaters.
yeah, right.
And then you open up the news and you're like, some asshole over a third Mardiv in Okinawa did what to some
Yeah.
poor like 16-year-old Japanese guy? What the hell?
Right.
You get the
Yeah.
fuck, guys, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as it's like some people think I hate Patton, like the general. I hate Patton the movie because it's such a good movie. Um, everybody, if Patton the movie was a bad movie, I wouldn't care about it. But it's such a
Yeah.
good movie, everyone's watched it,
Yeah.
and George C. Scott has now become the idea in American collective memory of what Patton was like, and it's not
Yeah.
even close. And like you're saying, like, okay, I was in the 82nd. There's also the 101st, and for some reason, because of some dumbass TV show, the 101st gets all the credit or whatever. Well, you got guys like easily equal, if not superior to Patton in rank as well as battlefield ability. Guys like Hodges, Simpson, his
Mhm.
boss Bradley. How many people in the chat besides Bill and I have ever heard of some of these guys? Well, why is that? Because the goddamn movie, they didn't make a movie about him with George C. Scott.
Yeah.
If they make him, well, unfortunately, 2002 he's passed on. But if I was ever going to have a movie made about me, I demand George C. Scott be raised from the dead and play my character because he made a TV movie called Mussolini: The Untold Story,
Oh,
and
yeah.
by the end of that movie, you're like, Mussolini was a pretty good guy. He really got a raw deal, and I feel sorry for him. Mussolini, a despot and a laughingstock to boot.
Yeah.
And yet George C. Scott kind of makes him look like a semi badass by the end of the show. And so imagine if you can stack that ability on top of Patton, who was a good general.
Yeah.
The problem is we had a lot of good generals. They all get pushed aside, overshadowed, and forgotten because of that, that movie.
Yeah. True, Jen. Just goes to show you can find idiots anywhere. I mean, look at this TV show. Where's Chris? Oh, wait. There's in Resident.
You can't make fun of people when they're not here.
Oh, yes, I can. That's the perfect time to make fun of them.
There you go.
Tuffy here says the British 6th Airborne. Of course. The famous Red Devils. I actually have British jump wings. I got to jump with the British Airborne back in the day. Earned my British jump wings. Yeah. So
Tuffy, is there any kind of like animosity or like who gets remembered better? You got 1st Airborne and 6th Airborne. I mean, 1st Airborne was first. I know they jumped into Sicily. In fact, we just did that game. We did Primosol Bridge, where I didn't do it. My teammate Mark did it. He burned Colonel Frost alive with an Italian flamethrower, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, the 1st Airborne Division landed at least in Sicily, possible. In fact, I do know this. Italy as well. It's part of Operation Slapstick,
mm-hmm.
The opening phase of the invasion of mainland Italy. Technically, the opening is Operation Slapstick, or no, Operation Baytown. But anyway, as opposed to the 6th that landed at Normandy, captured Pegasus Bridge, and Pegasus Bridge is all anybody talks about. Even though the 1st was at Arnhem, the 1st was in Sicily, the 1st was in Italy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is what it is. We all have our things. I mean, to your point, if you want to get really into the weeds, what is one of the most well-known British units in history? The 24th Foot from 1870s. Why? Because 1,500 of them got wiped out at Isla Wanda.
They surrendered at Saratoga. It's not the same regiment. The lineage changed between. No, it's the same regiment.
And 150 of them stood off 4,000 Zulus.
Yep. They couldn't stand off 4,000 New Yorkers, but they did stand off 4,000 Zulus. Just saying.
Shots fired across the bow.
It's funny. I say, hey, I thought it was like an interesting thing to bring up because 24th was actually a pretty good unit, and it was like well, back then it's the 24th Regiment of Foot. Now it's the 24th like South Wales Borderers or something.
Yeah.
And it does change. Actually, they didn't call them the South Wales Borderers until after Zulu. It's one of the few things the movie gets wrong. But they kind of try to use these name changes to say it's not really the same regiment. I'm like, it's the same regiment. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Well, it happens. Now, tough years.
The Marines always say, especially even when I was in the Marines, they would try and teach you this in boot camp. They'd be like, the Marines have never retreated once in combat. I'm like, I was only 17 years old at the time, but I was like, okay, it was a badass moment, but Chosin Reservoir was a retreat. And in fact,
I
the
really
longest
hope you
retreat
didn't
in
say that
American
to your
history.
DI.
Oh no, I was young and foolish. I wasn't that young and foolish.
I wasn't stupid.
Yeah. And there were Marine units that fell back along with the rest of the Army of the Potomac at First Bull Run. And that, I mean, anyone who knows anything about the Civil War, that was an absolute rout.
Mm.
And they got caught up on that route. And okay, they were 90-day enlistees, but they were wearing the Eagle Globe and Anchor. So the Marine Corps has literally shit its pants and run from the enemy in battle. It's very rare, and you really have to split some hairs, but it has happened. So
Yeah.
totally.
Now, tough ears. I really resent the fact that you say I flunked both of my homework from last week. One, Dog Soldiers, I got to find it.
Oh,
And the
yeah, we
Mirbat.
might not be doing that now, but yeah.
Mirbat, yes. I honestly, I forgot about that. I will, at the next show, report. I will give a report on the Battle of Mirbat. Okay.
Tough years. I know you missed the beginning of the show. It hasn't been the easiest week.
No. So, oh man! All right, we have a couple more little items here that I want to share real quick.
God, we're still in news. I got us way off track. I'm sorry.
No, this is why I like when it's just you and I, because we can just shoot off each other and just talk about things. So this is from First Corps. They have some American Civil War walking wounded. Okay.
Reynolds First Corps at Gettysburg?
No,
Yeah,
that's the name of the company.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So, okay. If you're looking for some walking wounded minis to represent casualties, I guess you could say. There you go. I'm gonna be honest with you. If I'm playing a game, I mean, those are nice. I mean, they will look nice on a table. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shooting them down at all. But I would use just a counter if you have to account for casualties on the field versus minis, personally, unless you're doing like some showcase game or something like that. Don't you think, Jim?
Almost like a diorama.
Yeah.
This is totally a subjective thing. Absolutely not. The views of Oriskany do not reflect those of Cinema Podcast or whatever. I've always found casualty minis a little creepy. Probably not for Civil War. Civil War, it wouldn't bother me. But like we had the first person I actually lost as a KIA in that Mogadishu game was a sergeant in one of the lead Humvees. I'm like, dude, we literally just killed, Dominic Pilla. I'm not gonna make up like literally get my red paintbrush out and make up a mangled person to put on the table. It's again, the further back you go, it's cool. I just put a counter on there. It shows what happened, because you have to track it. And it's also victory points, and it's also, it affects the speed of the squad. It affects the morale of the squad and the firepower of the squad and everything else. Having a person killed, or even worse. That's one of the things I like about Force on Force. When a person in the squad is wounded, the morale effect is worse than if he's just killed outright.
Yeah.
It still slows him down because when man left behind, you still have to carry him. But that was actually a question that came up on the table. They're like, okay, so this guy's wounded. Morale effect on the game is like 2 steps, and then he's killed. That actually goes up a step. I'm like, yeah, he's no longer screaming.
Yeah.
It's weird to think about, and then I don't know. I guess that's going to be different for different players.
Yeah.
But actually taking the time to buy the mini, paint the mini, and actually, now this is walking wounded, and it's from a conflict further back where we don't know the actual name of the guy. We don't have his picture, and all that stuff like that. Okay, that's like I said, we're not shooting down First Corps. First of all, awesome name, by the way. By far and away, best corps in the Army of the Potomac, especially the Iron Brigade. Those guys are. I think it was 2nd Manassas. Iron Brigade went up head to head, toe to toe with the Stonewall Brigade, and that was a get together, man. That was rough. That's just 2 units that just would not back down and took no shit. I think it was 4th Virginia versus they called it the Iron Brigade, but it was units from like Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana,
Michigan, right?
yeah, like the Midwest, like right
Yeah.
up in there. So there's five regiments in the brigade, and they're mostly from that area. There might have been an Iowa regiment in there as well. Yeah, definitely some really tough guys, and yeah, the minis look great. I just then again, I don't really build Civil War anyway. But
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, it's personal preference, I guess. Yeah. So let's see. There was one last one for anybody who has been watching the TV show SAS Rogue, SAS Squadron. I can't remember what the exact title of it is, but here is Patty Main. He
Ooh,
was part of Patty Main. He's a lieutenant in the original SAS back in World War II. The TV show was it Rogue Heroes? I think it's called.
is it about like September, like the World War I desert SAS?
No, World War II. You know when they
Oh,
formed?
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, when they formed. They show how the
I'll have to
SAS
check that out.
formed and learned from the LDRG. So
Nice.
yeah, so
Yeah,
he
Patty
was.
Main was crazy, man.
Well, he pretty much is in the TV show is insane.
Like clinically insane. Then again, you almost have to be to take do some of the things. Didn't he start off as like a soccer player or something like that, or a football player?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. That's part of their Soldier of Fortune series from Bolt Action, and he's only available during October. So if you really want a Patty Main, better get him. Those
I don't
Irish
have that.
guys, I tell you.
I don't have that exact figure, but my LRDG force, I've got guys that look a lot like that.
Yeah.
28 millimeter. I did build one 28 millimeter army in my time. 28 millimeter long range desert group. They have that same headdress. He's carrying the same weapon. It's a different pose, but
Interesting. So, and as you notice, well, I've already talked. I'm assuming that's supposed to be a Thompson he's holding.
I thought that was.
Yeah. So wasn't a Bren. Let me bring it up here again. Dink. Yep. I'm assuming that's supposed to be a Thompson. It wasn't a Sten or a Bren or anything like that.
No, the magazine's coming out of the bottom. Yeah.
Yep.
And
it's a good old Tommy gun.
They did carry the M19. Was it the M1928A1? The was like a 25 round box, same caliber, 45, but
45.
No big
drum.
Yeah,
the 100 round drum or 50 round drum, whatever that was.
It's fine in the streets of Chicago, but in the desert, that thing's gonna jam way too many times.
So cool. All right, that's all the updates we had from Marty. So today, just to update everybody, there was some programming planned. Unfortunately, due to current events, it is not going to be aired. So we're going to count today's show as our content. Next week, Jim is on his well-deserved birthday bash. I will be covering Sunday content. We'll probably do some kind of live game or something. There's a couple new war games out, virtual, PC, whatever you want to call them, digital, that I'd like to explore. Jim, I don't know about you, but I mean, I know you're a big proponent in the virtual tabletop, whether it's for Panzer Blitz or whatnot. I'm not going to say easier, but you don't have to mess with big tables.
It's easier.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Especially when you're presenting, right? By the way, your camera work is really good on your Mogadishu with tables. Did you do most of the filming, or was Jen there to help you film while you were playing?
I did most of it.
Okay.
I did most of it. I mean,
and
she was there as well.
So just for the audience, so you take all the footage, you bring it back, you edit it, and then you do your narration over the top. You're not doing it during game, right?
No, we can't do it during the game because a whole bunch of reasons. Number one, that club is basically a concrete box and the audio is terrible. Number two, it's all on an iPhone, so I don't have any like special mics for it.
Sure.
And probably the most important reason, and I always tell people this at the club at the time, if I'm actually trying to use club audio, you have to like tell everyone to shut up. And hey, I'm trying to stop. We're going to do that take again, and they're trying to play a game.
Yeah.
Here, I do talk into the camera but it's almost like a doctor taking like dictation.
You dictate, so you know what's going on, so you can narrate it later.
It's notes to myself later,
Yeah.
and then when I'm putting it all in my editing board, I just completely delete the original audio, put in what I hope is somewhat clean audio. The audio is always tough. Some hopefully improved audio up in there. make sure that all the little sound segments line up with the action on the table.
Yeah.
Make sure that I'm pointing at the right dice when I'm talking about that roll or whatever. It's a lot of work. It's the 60-60 rule. It's 60 minutes to make 60 seconds of content. So you see like these 26, 27, 28-minute videos go up. That's a week of work.
Yeah.
That's basically a 40.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. It's 40 hours.
Yeah.
It's literally a full-time job on top of my full-time job.
Yeah. I mean, again, for people who've not done full-blown videos, whether it's a game demo, presentation, or some like Jim's, oh my God, it escaped me. Your the
7
presentation,
days.
the presentations you used to do about different battles and
Oh,
how
the
to
Op
game.
Center way back
The
when.
Op Center. Thank you. Good God.
Yeah.
I
No,
must be
it's
getting old.
been 2.5 years since I've done one
It's
of
been a
those.
minute, as they say
Yeah.
these days. But that's a lot of work. It's not that easy. Like Marty's uploaded some video from last weekend's Autumn Wars videos, and I have to go through them and see what I can use. So, and it takes hours. For 1 hour of edited footage. It's usually
Well, it's usually 1 minute per an hour.
Yeah,
So
that's a good.
and now it's literally like people used to tell me that, and I'd be like, "Wow, really?" And then I started doing it. I'm like, "Holy shit, they were right."
Yeah,
to-
the funny thing is when we first got into this business 10 years ago now, at least, and we flew over to Ireland because Lloyd and I from Beast of War used to talk all the time because we were filming stuff for him over here in the U.S. and sending it over to Ireland. And I'm like, why is it taking them so bloody long to do anything with this stuff? Then I flew over to Ireland and I sat down with Lloyd for several days, and it's like, now I know why you guys hide in your office, because that's all they're doing is they're ingesting raw footage, and then they edit it into a somewhat resemble of a story, and then there's all kinds of. So it takes hours and days to present a good video, and the longer it is, the more time it takes.
I mean, yeah, these little half-hour battle reports. It's 4 days out of every week.
Yeah.
Because I can't work on it 8 hours a day. Well, actually, sometimes I do. So it's a 16-hour day because work.
Yeah.
And to get it up there in time for next Sunday, it's like literally every week you got to throw another one up there, and it's like I was a little ahead, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll be able to take a month off in the fall, and then my hard drive crashed, which really sucks because I won one game, the Polish Commonwealth. I won that game like 26-3.
Ooh.
And I was waiting to brag about that and lost all the footage.
Hmm.
Probably for the best, because I probably would have come off like a jerk. Look at how bad I kicked these guys' asses here. It would have been cool. Anyway, yeah, it's definitely definitely a little bit of work.
So yeah, so I'll come up with something for next weekend, and Jim and I will talk off camera, but it's all good, people. And if you guys have any input on stuff, I do think I'm ordering the new game In Country that Marty and Chris have been very interested in. It's kind of another like Spectre Miniatures Operations type-ish game, modern operators versus bad guys. We'll probably do a couple of like 10-minute videos on how to move, how to do combat, just kind of introduce people to the rules. I think for me, with the time I have available, doing these little short snippet videos is probably going to be the way to get some consistent content out versus big projects. Obviously, I'd love to do Isla Nwana or Rourke's Drift again and do a proper video this time. So we'll see. But yeah, and we got our awards that we got to get together. So we got some stuff coming. But yeah. Jim, do you have any final thoughts?
Nope.
right.
Can't say that I do.
Okay. So guys, just know Jim has been working really hard on some really great presentations for the Yom Kippur War. Obviously, with today's current events, those are going to be put on the back burner to be posted at a later date, and we'll gauge that as well. Part of being a presenter. Good God, presenter of historical wargaming and history is being responsible and sensitive to conditions to find out whether now's the proper time or not.
Especially when it comes to modern warfare.
Yeah. So, because people are living it, right? It's easy to post something that happened 1,000 years ago or 100 years ago, But when it's, very relevant to modern times, we have to be a little bit more sensitive to that. So I am a firm believer that we have to present.
If this if this had happened in June or January, but it's pretty clear that the people that are doing this chose the date for the same reasons we chose the date. I mean,
Mhm.
so that extra tendon of connectivity is what really makes it kind of
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. So we will. It'll get posted. It will get posted. Just not today. Okay. So, guys, for Jim, I want to thank you for joining us on today's show. As always, keep up the great work and join our Discord channel, Facebook page, comment, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Help the channel continue to grow. Our numbers keep going up, on a very steady pace. So that's a good thing. And we appreciate everything you do. And we love participation. Tough Ears, thank you for joining the show. Jen, thank you again for joining the show. And those others out there, we appreciate you following along. And we will see you in the next episode of the SITREP podcast. Take care.
You have been listening to the SITREP podcast. We hope you have enjoyed the show. Make sure you like and subscribe to all of our channels on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Discord. Remember to join us every other weekend for a new episode of the podcast, and don't forget our other programming on Wednesdays and Sundays. Thanks for listening.